tell us more about Orange Shirt Day and how it's commemorated in Canada?
Well, since 2013, truth and reconciliation are some of the terms that have been used in international arenas for indigenous nations, indigenous peoples, to commemorate and to call upon the global community to recognize the horrors, the ongoing genocide, not just cultural genocide, but the ongoing institutional genocide that is targeting indigenous nations and that is eroding our sovereignty, our languages, our ceremonies, our worldviews, and to begin the healing process. Before there is any healing or reconciliation, there has to be a truth-telling. So the orange shirts assist us in commemorating that, not only nationwide, but hemisphere-wide. We, the Sioux Nation in my case, but the Cree Nation, the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, the Coastal Salish people, the Blackfeet Confederacy, many indigenous nations have been bifurcated by colonial borders, the United States and Canada. So what happened in Canada is also happening in the United States. The Secretary of the Interior under President Biden has created a boarding school healing initiative. So both of these countries, Canada and the United States, are appearing to take the right constructive steps to tell the truth and begin to heal.
Right. The day has drawn greater attention amid recent discoveries of unmarked graves on former residential school sites, along with the remains of more than 200 Indigenous children. Can you just talk to us a little bit about what some of those experiences were by the Indigenous people that went to these residential schools, just so that people who perhaps aren't familiar with this, they have an essence of what actually went on?
Well, we talk about it as if it's in the past, but the current policies of removing Native American children from their families, from their homes, from their tribal nations, came right from what is euphemistically called the boarding school or the residential school era. These are not schools. These are centers of genocide. They are concentration camps. They are where the Christian Church, at the behest of and sponsored by the United States government and the government of the young state of Canada, executed unspeakable acts of horror. We're talking child rape. We're talking sexual abuse. We're talking mass murder. It's not just 200 children who've been found. It's more like 20,000 between the United States and what is now called Canada. There are mass graves in places where men and women of the church who represent Jesus Christ in Christ consciousness have committed these unspeakable acts upon my mother, upon my grandmother. It is not removed in any sense of the word. I'm communicating to you in the English language as a legacy of what is misnamed the boarding school or residential school era. We do not want to relive what happened there, but we have to continue to push for land back in Indigenous hands and for the federal governments of Canada and the United States to invest in Indigenous language and language programs and revitalize our worldviews and help us seek the respect that we deserve on the world stage.
Can you talk to us a little bit about the social and emotional impacts? You spoke about being the son of a woman who is impacted. No doubt, as you say, this has been going on for a long time. What about intergenerational trauma? How has that impacted the community, especially speaking as someone who is the offspring of someone who has experienced trauma like that?
Well, when you grow up on what are called Indian reservations, the United States and Canada, in Canada is the reserve system, but they've confined us politically, economically, quote unquote, legally, illegally, we should say, pursuant to the doctrine of discovery. They consider indigenous nations to be subhuman. So today we have the highest rates of mortality. We have the highest rates of alcoholism, of substance abuse, of mental health concerns, and of suicide. We are disrespected in all of the institutions of Canada and the United States. And just now, in the 21st century, in 2,000 years since the beginning of their reign as Christians, as Christian nations of Europe and what is known as Western civilization, the beginning of that empire, we are starting to be able to deconstruct that and unravel that from within intellectually, because we've been attempted to be absorbed or assimilated by those institutions, but our original metaphysics, our original philosophies and worldviews and rituals live to this day. So there is still a chance that we can reclaim who we are and share with the world community who we are as nations occupied illegally by Canada and the United States.
So Chase, how does that look? What would you like to see happen?
The government of Canada give sacred sites and all of the lands that surround those sacred sites back to the indigenous nations. They give what they've turned into tourism parks and national parks back to tribal nations. In the United States, with my nation, the Sioux Nation, or the Oceti-Sakowee, they need to give the Black Hills back. All of the sacred sites that are contained within the Black Hills, all of the tourism dollars, all of the rare earth minerals, all of the precious water resources in both of those countries need to be returned to indigenous hands, indigenous nations, because we will manage them more properly than these empires have to this day.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Eyes for us. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you very much.